Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey, Joe on Joe listeners, it's me, Joe Slepsky, and I'm back and you're back. This is the quarantine re-releases of our original tracks going back 4 years, and I hope you're enjoying these as much as I'm enjoying reliving them, warts and all. I think you can easily hear where I'm finding myself and finding what the show turned out to be, so I'm really happy to share these with you guys. Again, we pulled these back from behind the Patreon wall, and I wanted to make them available to everybody during this time to share and give and listen and have fun, especially because G.I. Joe's back on YouTube now. So, yeah, so I appreciate that. And you guys can always follow me at Joe on Joe Pod on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Let me know what you think of some of these early episodes, how terrible they are, or how funny they are, or how awful they are. And we're starting recording back up again, so reach out to me. Let me know, joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know if you want to join me for an episode. I believe we're going to jump into G.I. Joe Extreme very, very soon. So without any further ado, here is the OG track from Joe on Joe 4 years ago. Enjoy.
You are listening to the Joe on Joe podcast, the only podcast where Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hi, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. I'm your host, Joe Slepsky. This is the only podcast where I will talk about G.I. Joe episode by episode, and it is the greatest Joe podcast that you're ever going to listen to during the half hour that you are, in fact, listening to it.
Straight up.
Straight up. With me this week is my friend Bart Gold. Now, Bart Gold is a Hollywood screenwriter. He's a visual artist. He's a maker of all things creative. He's written for Universal Pictures, DreamWorks TV, amongst many others. He's very talented. He's very funny. He's a big Star Trek fan, and I know he's got some Joe love. So let's give it up for Mr. Bart Gold.
Thank you. That's right. We already glossed over my weirdest credential of playing a Star Trek nerd in Brent Spiner's web series.
Explained that. That's no gloss over. Let's get into that.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it's because of my Star Trek fandom and general habit of wearing nerdy T-shirts. A friend of mine who wrote Brent Spiner's web series, Fresh Hell,
okay,
invited me to play a Star Trek nerd in the series.
That's awesome. So what did you do?
I got to live on the internet forever in a scene in which the premise of the show is Brent has destroyed his career, and he's trying to claw his way back into Hollywood's good graces. It's like a Curb Your Enthusiasm-ish show.
For Trekkies.
Yes, and, not for anybody, really. Anybody that could sympathize with an out-of-work actor in his 50s.
I like to think that Star Trek has universal appeal anyway.
Right. So Brent in the episode I'm in is begging LeVar Burton for money, and they are beset by the three types of LeVar Burton fans: somebody that knows him from reading Rainbow, somebody who's a Roots fan, and then they get beset by Star Trek nerds. So I got to spend the whole day asking them stupid questions about the engines.
That's fantastic.
It really was fantastic. We can maybe the internet can help us solve another mystery, because I've always been fascinated with my favorite Bill Shatner event. Is I was watching Wheel of Fortune one day. They had Celebrity Wheel of Fortune. Okay. And he was one of the three. I can't even remember who the other two were, but Bill was basically not having the rules. So he would be like, if he would hit bankrupt, he would say, wait a minute, where'd all my money go? Oh, I want it back.
Hey, I want my money back.
And then, and it was really awkward. And then on top of that, they come back from the commercial break and they have replaced Bill with some soap opera actress that they must have run down the hall to get.
Shut up.
No, Bill. It's Bill had to go.
Are you serious?
I'm completely serious. I've never found this on YouTube.
So because I lost, I can't keep playing the game.
Ostensibly, he decided halfway through the game that he was too busy to continue on.
That is amazing.
I've been to a Wheel of Fortune shoot a gazillion years ago, so I guess it's on the Sony lot. And they must have just literally run to some other soundstage and borrowed anybody that qualified as an actress.
That's so great. Did they explain why? Bill got beamed up?
My memory of this is to the tune of Bill had to go.
Okay, if you're out there and you have a link to us, holy cow, tweet it out to us. And you can find me on Twitter at Joe and Joe Pod, at Facebook, Joe and Joe Pod, Instagram, Joe and Joe Pod, or send me an email, joeandjoepod@gmail.com. And if you've got a copy of this, That is awesome. I would love to see that. That's hilarious.
Hopefully, I'm not exaggerating it in my memory, but this is one of those like TV mysteries from back when
Yeah.
there used to be mysteries.
Sure, yeah. You ever listen to the Mystery Show?
No.
It's a great podcast. I forget her name, a girl from like NPR with
Okay.
NPR Bona Fides.
Okay.
She solves people's random mysteries like that.
Oh, fun.
So if you reach out to her and like, listen, I saw this show. Now, that's probably a little too easy for her because you probably can, calling the right people, they could probably figure it out pretty quickly.
I'm totally looking that up though.
It's a great show. Like, there's one episode where a guy, it's my favorite episode. A guy has, he's in possession of a really unique belt buckle, like crazy unique belt buckle, and it's got a couple.
I heard that episode.
Yeah, it's got a couple identifying marks on it.
Right.
And she,
I have
from where
heard
he
that.
grows up and these marks and initials and engraving and stuff in it, she actually tracks down the person who originally owned that belt buckle.
I
And
do remember that story.
it makes you, it brings tears to your eyes because it turns out the buckle had a special significance and this and that. The Mystery Show is a great podcast. I think they're coming back relatively soon or something. It's a ton of work though because she really seeks out answers.
Right.
Which I've got one. I'll share it now because I don't know if I'll ever get around to sending it to her. I grew up with a framed photo of King Kong in my basement. And it was from the original, 39 or 33? 33, right? Yeah,
Okay.
King Kong was 33. I loved that movie. Loved it as a kid. And I think the reason I loved it as a kid so much, I watched it every time it was on TV, before VCRs and stuff, because I had this photo in my basement, and it's Kong and the Empire State Building swatting away
biplanes.
The biplanes, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's autographed, and it says it's to the Slepsky brats, which is me and my sisters. That's how my father lovingly referred to us.
Nice.
Yeah, but it was like or it might even said to Sandy, Laura, and Joe, whatever, signed King Kong, and it had a guy's name on it.
Was it like written with like a 3-foot long pencil?
Right. Yeah.
that like
giant.
that like put like a giant golf ball sized dent in the photograph wherever it touched it.
What do you know about the making of the original King Kong?
I expect it to have been some sort of Ray Harryhausen puppet or some similar construction
It's exactly
in the
what
1930s
it is.
movie.
There was no man who played King Kong, and yet this framed photo says the man in the suit. My father met a guy in like 1976, whatever year that King Kong remake with Jeff Bridges came out. My dad was in a bar in Chicago after work. He was a sprinkler fitter, construction, and actually, literally at those years, I think he was working on the John Hancock building. He met a dude. He said an old guy, definitely old enough to be the dude. He met a dude in a bar, and they were all chit-chatting it up, and that's what they did back in the day. They worked, they went and had a beer, and they met random people. And this guy swore to my dad, "Hey, I'm the guy who played King Kong."
All right.
And my dad's like, "What?" My dad doesn't know. My dad doesn't care about Hollywood, or he wouldn't have known. He wouldn't. And even frankly, in the 70s, I don't know that the world knew that there was no man in a suit. King Kong was completely done with puppetry and with models. It was Harryhausen. There was no man in a suit in the 1933 King Kong.
Of course.
But my dad was just like, "Awesome. Like, that's cool. What's your name? Blah, blah, blah." Introduced the guy's name. And the guy's like, "Here, I'll give you an autographed picture and I'll sign it to you." And he signed it to my kids. So he signs it to me and my sisters. And he writes, the man in the suit, blah, blah, blah. And he puts his name, and it's in cursive, but it's an Italian sounding name.
All right.
So I grow up thinking I've got an autographed picture from the guy who played King Kong. So I've watched King Kong a million times. So now I'm an adult in my early 20s. I go through, take a minor in film at University of Illinois. And one of the things we learn about is King Kong.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's not right. How are they saying that there was no man in a suit when I've got a photo of the guy who claims he was the man in the suit? Now, it's not like of him. It's a still from the movie.
Right.
So now it's like I remember where I was when I first searched this out. It's like 1999. So it was pre-Google.
Okay. Oh, Alta Vista
Yeah,
even.
yeah. Because I remember where I was in my first apartment in Chicago when I was first searching for this stuff.
You're
And
gonna fire up the Netscape and figure this one out.
Totally. And I do some searches, and I find the skeleton of a story that I've never been able to confirm. But there was a guy running around in the 70s when that Jeff Bridges remake came out, getting famous off of saying he played the original King Kong.
Oh, okay.
And because most of the people were dead,
So you think you have that guy's autograph?
I do have that guy's autograph. Because
That
most
is
of the
really
people were
funny.
dead, there was no one to refute him. And from the story that the story that I saw it wasn't a debunking of him. It was a story about him.
Right.
So it was saying like, this is the guy who played it, and this is the blah, 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 and he did this, and I think he was on like morning TV shows and all this stuff, but there was no one around to say no, because most of the people that worked on that movie were dead,
Right.
or communication wasn't enough that they didn't hear that this guy was running around doing. If it happens
Yeah,
today,
it
it
would
hits
be
the news,
regional. Yeah.
right? If it happens today, it hits the news and it's quick. This guy was eating dinner off of the fact that he was, quote, the guy in the suit when there was no guy in a suit.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. So I want to know what was this guy's story?
There were multiple scams like that back then. I just heard about one where the kind of like let's call it like a 3-hit wonder rock band, the Zombies.
Yeah.
The two of the members of ZZ Top were apparently in a fake Zombies. Like this guy decided he would send like groups of college kids around the country impersonating the Zombies.
Shut
they
up.
like literally would perform rock concerts as the Zombies.
And so like Billy, what's his name from ZZ Top was one of those dudes.
I forget which two of the three, but it was two of the guys from ZZ Top before ZZ Top and before they'd grown their beards out were apparently in a fake Zombies band.
That's hilarious.
And then this was apparently this guy's scam unraveled when eventually some real band member like got in a fist fight with like fake band members purporting to be him. But you know what I mean? It's like there was like a joke once where it's like, yeah, well, it's like Bachman Turner Overdrive, although Bachman and Turner aren't there anymore. You know, it's like these bands that just will not die.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
like,
Yeah.
you know, they're trying to masquerade maybe as one original member.
Yeah.
But that stuff
Gladys,
can't happen
Gladys
anymore.
Knight and the Pips, and all the Pips are 10 years younger than me. So I love all this talk, but let's get into G.I. Joe. Let's get to what the
Sure.
people are here for. Let's get to what the people are paying
And
paying
in
good money
fact,
to talk about.
I'm going to give you a first.
What do you
is
got?
this is a Joe on Joe first. I have got my own file card feature.
Shut up.
Yes.
Let me see it.
See, because what I've got here is this is a hand photocopied magazine I used to publish when I was in high school. You know, like where I grew up, Boston, there were like all these. There was a heavy local music scene.
Yeah.
And you could find these things that they would call fanzines in the comic book stores and
Aerosmith,
record stores.
baby. Sure.
And so it's like, hey, let's interview the band down the street kind of a thing.
Yeah.
My fanzine wasn't, I didn't have any band interviews. This was just me like compiling comic strips that I'd written, like my version of like Far Side style cartoons, a fake horoscope, you know, a page of like fake Monopoly cards.
Bart, that's great.
You know, like
I
I
love
used,
that.
and I used to like there were record stores in like Harvard Square that used to sell this for me. So I have some like I would make these fake, or I did it a few times. I guess I made fake GI Joe, fake GI Joe cards using the power of super paint on my original like 1984
Oh, yeah.
fish tank Mac.
That is so great.
Like this stuff used to live on like discs.
and are
you
these
know?
all
Like
so
floppy
these are all
disks.
meant to be GI Joe so it's codename Sleazeball, the GI Jerk bathroom attendant.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
It's hilariously stupid.
No, I love it. Oh my gosh! Well, you want to give one of these a go? Can I give one a go?
Well, how about I read it just to account for like the fact that it's full of typos?
Oh,
and-
you want to take over my show? Is that what you want to do?
I just feel like if
You do one, I'll do one.
If I read it, I'll know what I was talking about because this
All
is
right.
like full of typos and like the font is. Like
I
that.
think we can get through. Quit apologizing for genius and go for it, buddy.
All right. So yeah, Sleazeball, the GI Jerk. Oh, it's funny because it says Jerk instead of Joe.
Bro, well, that's how you skirted around copyrights.
The GI Jerk bathroom attendant. Let's see. File name Morrison Axel Washburn. MO washroom attendant, janitor, plumbing analyzer. Morrison, Morris for short, grew up in Davenport, Iowa with his grandparents. His parents were shot while in enemy corn country. Having a vendetta against corn countryers, he joined the army to train for an assault on corn territory. On his first day of basic training, he told the drill sergeant to shove an amoeba up his nose and subsequently was forced to clean the latrine with his toothbrush. He actually liked this and became the most dedicated janitor in his unit. He was recruited for the Jerk team 3 years ago and has been a vital member of the team. However, we still have trouble convincing him to use a mop and tidy bowl instead of his toothbrush.
Bart, that's fantastic. I'm going to read one. This file card features on Dandelion, the G.I.
Dandelion.
Jerk florist. His file name is Filbert Aaron Philanthropod?
Yeah, hey, you have to go back in time and ask me back then.
His file card name is Filbert Aaron Philanthropod. His modus operandi is agricultural scientist and rifle trooper, because they often go hand in hand. Filbert Philanthropod is the latest addition to the Jerk Biological Task Force. Before his recruitment last year, he spent 9 years at different jobs doing weddings and Valentine's Day deliveries. He spent 1 year in the infantry as their best marksman, capable of shooting the head off a buttercup from 200 yards. Unfortunately, he won't do it. He says it's murder. He is believed to be an ex-hippie, seeing as during a trench battle he will frequently make crowns from flower fragments. He grew up in Topeka, Kansas, the boonies, in a greenhouse with his parents and younger brother, Violet. His younger brother's name is Violet? I love it. You're very gender neutral on this.
I was ahead of my time.
Ahead of your time. His only friends within 5 miles were Boris and Horatio, the biggest ferns in the family. He is in fine physical condition for his age, but is a mammonitarian, which is the opposite of vegetarian, and he eats rhubarbs. Are rhubarbs not vegetables?
I think it's a legume. I'm not going to stand by my scientific analysis of this stuff. Man,
Bart, I love this.
If only
love this.
If only anybody knew this all still existed.
I love this, Bart.
Like,
so this means you were a G.I. Joe fan growing up.
I was somewhat of a fan. I was definitely a huge fan of the toys.
Yeah. Which ones did you have?
My brother had a lot of them. My brother was really the one that got hit by the Joe craze. Mm-hmm. I was still, playing with like my adventure people. If you ever have seen the adventure people, they're the same scale as like a G.I. Joe 5-inch figure, but they're just people like, hey, it's a hang gliding enthusiast. And he comes with a hang glider that will immediately fall to the ground when you throw it. I don't know if they had, they didn't have file cards or anything, but they would just come with like plastic canoes.
That's awesome. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
And like basic, so I had my favorite action figures were those guys. They were like actionless figures, to be sure, but
sure.
It's like, hey, a guy in a collared shirt, all right. but I would like give them the Joe weapons, and like
you got to arm up,
like set up like
in a way you
mazes
would
and stuff.
You would play Red Dawn. Because you would take a bunch of people that were equipped for the outdoors and hand them a bunch of rifles.
If Red Dawn had been invaded by robots instead of Russians, then yes.
Nice. So, do you remember any of the specific toys your brother had? Or?
Oh yeah, I remember. I was huge into the Zartan bunch, the Dreadnoks. Yeah, I loved those guys. It's funny. I remember the Cobra guys more vividly, I think, than I could distinguish most of the individual Joes. I remember Roadblock being pretty cool.
Awesome.
I remember Scarlet, of course. Sure. Because that crossbow got used by every action figure that I had at some point.
Totally. Did you watch the cartoon?
I watched, in the sense that I was one of those kids that would get up at 7 a.m. on Saturday and watch 5 hours of cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any recollection of any of the episodes?
Not in the sense of like where I am now, where I understand story and how it works. Mm-hmm. I couldn't go back and say, oh yeah, this is what's going to happen. At the end of the episode.
Sure. Well,
and it's so satisfying. So.
Sometimes with these cartoons, they're so crazy. You actually, it's hard to predict that. Because sometimes it just takes a wild left turn, and characters that show up that seem to be important just drop off by the end of the episode, and they're not there for the wrap up. It's one of the more interesting things about G.I. Joe, because they had so many characters that, and I think we find it in this episode, which today's episode is called "Haul Down the Heavens." One of the better things that I liked as a child, and I think it carried over into my appreciation for comic books and just story in general as an adult, is that they work with this library of characters that they don't feel the need to reintroduce every time they use them, because in that world, they're just there. Like Ripcord will show up and they'll name him, but they don't give him a backstory. They don't give him a whatever. He just shows up because he's the parachute guy and they need a parachute somewhere. And I like that. And I know that it's a little antithetical to today's version of storytelling where like every hero's journey, every character has to have a purpose and every character has to have this. But there's something about like this giant team. I'm a huge fan of Legion of Superheroes for that same reason, where there's this huge team of people and they're living in their world that's going to, the story that I'm following is going to intersect with all these other stories that all these other lives that these people are leading, you know? So when Cobra attacks, yeah, sure, maybe Shipwreck and Snowjob and Scarlet are involved in it, but Roadblock's around the corner, and eventually when he finishes what he's doing, he's going to come over and be like, hey, can I help you do, you know, like he'll be used as a weapon, you know, as a tool to defeat Cobra. I like that because it implies a larger universe, but I get how it makes for like, I don't know if the right word is sloppy or storytelling, but less focused storytelling because you are Deus Ex Machina everything. You're bringing in whoever you need to solve it. But the reality, that's the engine they built. The engine they built with G.I. Joe and with Legion and with things like that is we have a team of everybody. We can use whatever we need to solve this problem.
And it's hard not to embrace that from, you know, when you compare it to other cartoons. You know, I mean, think about He-Man. You know, it's like, oh, hey, I bet I know what's going to happen. I bet he's going to hold his sword up over his head, transform, and then fight his way through whatever the obstacle is.
Or on He-Man, and I like He-Man quite a bit, but on He-Man they would have usually like one guest hero per episode.
Right.
And whatever that guy's specialty, if it was Fisto, you knew he would have to punch something really hard, you know, or if it was Mechanic, you knew that he would have to somehow in the plot it would have to relate to him seeing very far off. And that's not necessarily the case with G.I. Joe. They had their specialties, but that was more to like get them into the plot. Like if they go to the snow, yeah, we're going to use Snow Job. But there wasn't necessarily something specific to Snow Job's abilities that would save it. It's just all the Joes are capable, but you're better in this terrain, so we're going to bring you along, you know? And so it was less predictable, I think, in that manner.
Yeah.
So, all right. So Bart Gold.
Yes.
www.bartgold.com.
Indeed.
Talented writer. Apparently a zine editor and creator. I love those. Can we tweet some out? Can we scan some and tweet some out?
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure. We can scan some and.
Yeah. We'll take some pictures and we'll tweet them out.
Yeah.
Do you want a specific hashtag? Do you want to?
Oh, I think a hashtag.
Because you're not
hashtag
on,
is pretty ambitious.
No, I think GI Jerk is the right hashtag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna tweet them out with a GI Jerk hashtag. I can't wait to see people's reaction to it. They're so great. And there's drawings. It's awesome. It's awesome. And what year about was it?
Oh, we're talking like 1985.
Oh, so great. So good. Well, 1985. That's when. So you were working on that, and I was watching Haul Down the Heavens.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's the same time frame.
I mean, this is me replicating the actual GI Joe like cards meticulously using super paint.
Absolutely.
Which was like, you know, mind blowing that you could do it at the time. I love that you had just like your dossier of cut out GI Joe file cards handy.
I just pulled out some original file cards, and you nailed it, man. You really, it's very close. No, you nailed it, absolutely. So without further ado, Mr. Bart Gold, we are going to jump into the episode called "Haul Down the Heavens."
Yo, Joe!
He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there.
Karaoke this, I love it. G.I. Joe is there. Except I have the worst singing voice. My wife loves to remind me on a daily basis.
I will say this. While I might not describe myself as having watched this, I certainly remember this theme song in fairly good detail.
It's fantastic.
I pretty much know who all the... I certainly know who all the Cobra guys were that we just saw.
So, I mean, this comes from the era of theme songs, not only cartoons, but also of regular like sitcoms and stuff, where the theme song told you the story of the show. And so you knew going into it who the bad guys were, who the good guys were, you know, Facts of Life. You knew what Facts of Life was about.
Right. Because they told you.
Yeah, it was the one with Michael J. Fox and Alex P. Keaton. Family Ties.
Family Ties.
Family Matters too, though. You know, like all that stuff.
What do you make of it,
the
Flint?
growing pains.
Why would
The
the
theme
Northern
song
Lights
told the
suddenly
story.
go haywire?
They
Who's
took
buzzing
that
the
time to get into
it's
it.
your flying
So
fool
we start the
girlfriend.
episode, and Lady J is flying a Sky Striker, and she buzzes Flint and Duke. We get a rare glimpse of Flint without his beret.
Did he just say kick her in the afterburner?
I believe he did. Yeah, I believe he did. We see the glimpse of a snowcat getting mounted up to an airplane. Now, last episode we were talking about what the animation house was, and a friend on
There's a
Twitter
disturbance in the aurora borealis. It may
got
be
back to
melting the
me
polar
and said
ice
it was
cap.
the Toei, like Toeie animation house. So thank you for filling us with that information. These are the kind of things I should know beforehand, but I don't, because I'm not the expert. I just watch stuff and comment on it. So we introduce the doctors. It's Dr. Johansson.
The situation up north is becoming critical.
We'll be taking off within the hour, sir.
I'm amazed you barbarous thugs can do anything
Okay.
constructive.
Now you get 2 hints as to who Dr. Entwistle may or may not turn out to be.
Right.
You get 2 guesses, because she sounds remarkably like a certain raven-haired seductress who'd like to go into.
Is she the Baroness?
Who'd like to go into the? Oh, I'm not saying.
Is she the
Just
Baroness
saying.
in blackface?
They're pretty. Yeah, that's exactly what she is. She's the Baroness.
She's
with blackface.
being presented as an African American woman,
Yeah, she's.
which the Baroness is not.
Yeah, she's the Baroness in blackface. That
Wow.
is absolutely true. And yeah, it's awkward. But you know what? I prefer to think
Oh
she's
no,
just in
crates!
disguise.
Joker running that crane!
So there's some
I'll
Joker
bust you
running
down
a
to
crane,
private.
and they're trying to stop them from going on their mission up to
Nobody
the Arctic.
home. Maybe someone got careless.
Turns out
and
it's a
left it
crane
in gear.
ghost. Have you ever had a run-in with a crane
Or
ghost?
maybe it was
That is like the worst
sabotage.
Scooby-Doo villain ever. The crane.
I know.
Crane ghost.
So they're on a C-130. They fly up to. And then we get Snow Job in this episode. Snow Job, best Joe name ever,
Wow.
right? Isn't it? We also have the Snow Cat, which is awesome. It's the white truck with the tire tank treads on the back, and it had the yellow canopy, and it had a missile that was attached to basically a snowboard. So you would shoot it, and the missile would snowboard along the top of the snow and to hit its target.
Oh wow. I think
Yeah.
I vaguely remember my
it's-
brother having that.
Yeah, it's that thing
that
right there.
toy.
It's so awesome. That came with I think that came with
Typically
Frostbite,
macho and
who
paranoid.
was one of the
Next,
other
I
polar
suppose you'll
troopers for
want to
G.I. Joe.
draft us. Brother, would I love to put her through boot camp?
Yeah, so this lady scientist, she's really pretty much of a jerk.
So like, what are the stakes of this polar mission that they're on exactly? What are the stated stakes of it?
Frankly, I don't know. I was talking to you.
Empty.
All I know is there's a bunch of scientists going up to the Arctic to investigate something,
Okay.
and Cobra's trying to stop them.
Because Cobra's got some asset up there they don't want discovered.
Right, Cobra's got something that
ostensibly.
they don't. Yeah, Cobra's got something they don't want discovered. But it also appears that everything's getting possessed.
Oh, really? I suppose the snowcat hotwired itself and chased us around of its own accord.
See what I'm saying? Like all these vehicles are coming to life. It's kind of like Maximum Overdrive meets The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing,
Right.
right? Not the clobbering time thing. More John Carpenter's The Thing. They're staying in this is a nice little swank hotel for.
I love this.
Oh,
So that's the real scientist.
yeah. So we cut to a random hotel, and the real scientist has been tied up. So now this is our as a viewer. If you didn't get the Baroness's terrible accent to begin with, this is your
Sure.
first clue that all is not as it seems.
What's going on back there?
We do have the cool Aurora Borealis going on behind her.
I noticed those Aurora Borealises.
Yeah, and Lady J sees a shadow. Oh boy, there's a giant polar bear. He's about to have Lady J for dinner. Now, Snow
Damn
Job.
Dharma Initiative.
Yeah, right? What if okay, wait. So Cobra has the mass device, which can teleport people. What if somehow Cobra teleported this polar bear to the Lost Island? What if
Right.
Cobra is responsible for the Dharma Initiative?
Or-
what if Dharma is really an anagram for Cobra?
Or what if Benjamin Linus teleported his polar bear from the island back in time to 1985, where it bothered G.I. Joe in the North Pole?
What if that? Oh my God, you're right. What if that polar bear is Benjamin Linus? We've gone too far into the mystery box part,
Totally
Oh.
awesome.
and now we find out why Cobra won.
And now we've
What do you
got
think
a
they're
base
up
that
to?
looks like a
They're
giant,
behind the
like
disturbance in
inflatable
the
pool
Aurora.
toy.
We'd better
Wait,
get back
hold
and
on,
out
because we weren't paying attention earlier. There's a disturbance in the Aurora Borealis, and that's what they're
What are
investigating.
you doing here?
That's what the scientists were going up to investigate.
All right.
So that's been settled. But it turns out Cobra's behind it.
Oh,
we
yeah,
don't know
Cobra
why. We don't know
Commander.
what they're doing.
I love that.
Oh,
voice.
and the snow troopers. I think this is our first glimpse of the snow troopers, the Cobra snow vipers.
Oh, she did pull the latex face off.
She totally did. Eat it, Mission Impossible.
We've got to warn the base.
So Flint and Snowjob are on the run from this huge assortment of Cobra weapons. Like Cobra is like all the vehicles right now chasing after these two dudes on the Battle Cat or on the polar sled.
Make it.
You figure that life has got to be really unpleasant on that base if they're required to be sitting in their vehicles with the keys on to be coming out of the base that fast when G.I. Joe gets spotted.
We'll find out how miserable it is after this break. Today's file card features on the Arctic Trooper, codename Snowjob. His file name is Harlan W. Moore, and his primary military specialty is the Arctic Ski Patrol. His secondary specialty is rifle instructor. His birthplace is Rutland, Vermont, and he's a grade E6. Snowjob was a major Olympic biathlon contender. He enlisted initially for the special training and support privileges that the Army gives to Olympic champions. However, to the consternation of Army PR flax, Snowjob volunteered and was accepted into the G.I. Joe team. He's a qualified expert in all NATO long-range sniper rifles and the XMLR-3A laser rifle. Submitted by Rock and Roll. You think we call him Snowjob because he does his job on skis? Negative. He's a con artist, pure and simple, except when he picks up the rifle. Sure as heck, something's gonna fall down. There's a couple things about Snowjob that I want to point out. First of all, greatest name for a Joe, right? Second of all, he's from Rutland, Vermont. Rutland, Vermont is a city that comic books in the late 70s and early 80s used because Rutland had a Halloween festival that was absolutely comic book centric. Roy Thomas, I know Larry Hama would have been aware of this. They would write Rutland, Vermont into their stories. There's multiple stories where the Halloween adventure for, let's say, the Justice League, they'd go to Rutland and they'd have an adventure. And over in the Avengers, where Roy Thomas was writing, his adventure would also pick up in Rutland, Vermont. They were like backdoor crossovers, and the other company's characters would show up in costume, quote, Halloween costumes, so it'd be people dressed as a bad Captain America when you're in the Justice League book, and over in the Avengers book, it would be people dressed as a bad Superman. And the villain would cross over with slightly different name, but the exact same power. So I love seeing that he's from Rutland, Vermont, and I would bet, as they like to say in the comic books, dollars to donuts, that that's a reference to that great city. And let's talk about the action figure. Snowjob came with the skis and the ski poles, as well as his rifle. So it was like you were getting an action playset with just your regular figure. I kept both skis for almost ever, and when I double-checked my figures a couple years ago, somewhere between now and, 1989, one of his skis got lost, and I was meticulous about it, so I need a Snowjob ski. And he's got that great bushy red beard. Snowjob's fantastic in my book. So Harlan W. Moore, Snowjob, we salute you.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
Yeah, do they leave the engines running with the heaters on? Because that was pretty fast.
Yeah, they came out really fast.
But now, let me throw this out there. The Baroness obviously is with the Joes, so they know the Joes are around the corner. They know the Joes.
That's a good point. Assuming
so
they're
on
in radio
alert.
communication.
Yeah, they're on high alert. So
maybe she open mic'd it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Flint just took out 2 Fang copters with his pistol. He smiles about it and then realizes they're going to die because there's still some hiss tanks. Oh, that's sweet.
Is that Snowjob, the guy with the red beard?
Yeah, that's Snowjob. Yeah. They have to bail off the polar battle bear because it's going to explode.
I feel like they had room to stop instead of sending it into an ice wall to explode.
Well,
what happened out there?
You could also think that maybe they wanted it to explode so Cobra would think they were dead.
Oh, good point.
That's what I'm going to say, even though I think it's just more of that and every time a car crashes, it explodes. That's a great tactic. Oh, Lady J throws her. Oh, man, that's a good javelin toss. But she ultimately gets knocked out by a trooper on a hiss tank.
You are now Cobra's prisoner.
Do you think
your friends will soon join you?
Cobra Commander's faceplate is heated? Because because it's metal.
It's going to conduct cold.
Yeah.
It can't be pleasant to be wearing that out in the cold. Plus, it's going to fog up.
I believe Destro's helmet is made of molybdenum steel or whatever that's pronounced. So I wonder if his faceplate is similar. Is it heated? Is it going to stick to his, if it gets cold? Is it going to be like the kid in the Christmas Story where his tongue gets stuck to it every time he hisses? That polar bear from earlier, he's going to come in handy. These, the Cobra troops just tranquilized him, and they're going to take him as a pet for Cobra Commander.
Right.
I feel like that is going to end up poorly for Cobra Commander when he tries to.
And now Snowjob just stole that little helicopter thing.
Yeah, he did. Oh, now he's going to have to punch a Cobra out. Oh, whoa. That Cobra guy did a good job.
Wow.
That Cobra guy just flipped Snowjob out of the Fang pilot seat, and now they both fell. Wow. Oh, and he's got all the tranquilizer darts. It was the guy who tranked the bear. Oh, they're rolling. There's a bunch of darts in the snow. We don't know who's going to get tranked. That's exciting. It's like going to a party at Bill Cosby's house. You don't know who's going to get tranquilized.
Oh, man. Another classic 1985 reference that doesn't hold up anymore.
Is it going to be Rudy? Is it going to be Theo?
Oh, wait, cut back to it.
Oh, they cut back to it. And who is it? Oh, man, Snowjob got tranquilized. He got 2 darts in him. He punches out that Cobra.
He called him a stinkin'.
He did. He called him a stinkin'. Now, Snowjob with that fine red beer wanders off into the snow. That bear got taken down real quick. Here we go.
That's true. Like, I feel like it was only a couple of darts.
Kicks from
the
mass
bear.
destruction, Destro.
I think we're going to find out what their
Consider
plan
it a
is
form
now.
of hygiene. We're giving the world a much-needed bath. The ion attractor generates forces strong enough to pull down the Aurora Borealis. The ions melt the ice, eventually raising the water level 80
So they're
feet
collecting
around
light.
the world.
Well, this episode
Coastal city
is all about
will be
global warming,
flooded.
just like the previous
Then
episode
the
hinted at
world
with
in
greenhouse
chaos.
gases.
Cobra
This
strikes
episode is
again.
warning the world of global warming and climate change because that's what Destro's doing here. So Destro's a Republican, right? The reason Republicans today are denying global warming and climate change is because they started it in 1985 with Destro.
Well, under the current campaign rules, Destro could literally write like a campaign check for $1 billion.
Totally.
And sign it, "So not Destro." and they would not be able to trace the money. So I'm looking forward to overturning Citizens United for sure.
Yeah, for sure. When that cheese-headed, flop-haired windbag Donald Trump announced his vice presidential nominee, I really wanted it to be Trump Destro. It's really what I wanted it to be.
Sorry, I was listening to Cobra Commander.
Oh, aren't we all listening to Cobra Commander,
Yeah.
though? So
I
that's
remember
great.
that voice so well.
So that's great. So that's the plan. I love it. It's so conscious. It's
like, but they're going to steal the Aurora Borealis, and what powers do they get from the energy that they collect from light?
Well, no, they don't care about that. They're expanding the Aurora Borealis so that it melts the polar ice caps quicker, and then it's going to kill people all over the world. It's going to be like Waterworld.
I disagree.
It's gonna be like the movie Water. That's their plan.
I disagree with their science.
Oh, real quick, we got Breaker, Cutter, Ripcord, and this is what I'm talking about, where all of a sudden you bring in these Joes that are awesome, and they're not necessarily part of the original squad, but like you have them to use, so let's just bring them in and make the show great. Someone's breaking into Wild Bill. Wild Bill's got a big butt, right? He's got a thick
like
can.
80s, like he's wearing Oshkosh.
So we got Firefly, who Firefly hasn't gotten a ton of screen time, but Firefly is great. He's the Cobra saboteur. He's breaking into the Joe headquarters, and he's rigging up some kind of explosive device. Snowjob, who is wandering out in the snow, he gets found by an Inuit family, and gets taken in like to save his life. It's pretty great.
Where am I?
And he's naked.
Indian village.
It's exciting.
What you doing all alone out there?
All alone.
Yeah.
So this guy presumably lives within walking distance of that gigantic Cobra base.
Yeah, apparently. Well, listen, if someone was setting up a giant Cobra base with all these tanks and they weren't bothering me, I lived just in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden someone decided to do that, and I'm like, they're not bothering me, I'm not bothering them.
I'm just saying that what are you doing out there alone is a surprise question for me.
It is true. Cutter notices that someone put stuff into the jet fuel. So we're going to have some trouble. See, gung-ho. America's
Gung Ho.
favorite
I remember
Marine.
Gung- yeah, I remember Gung
Yeah,
Ho.
and look what's happening. All the Sky Strikers are exploding because Firefly sabotaged them. Holy Hannah, Gung Ho. So this is catastrophic. I mean, all these airplanes are crashing down.
Yeah,
because-
that looked like a 737.
Oh yeah, look at this. I mean, all
I don't know where that. See, that was Oceanic 815 flying by.
totally. This is great. So Firefly, who in it was who was it in the G.I. Joe the second movie? Was it Ray Wise? Did he play Firefly?
Oh, I don't know.
And we go to commercial.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages. Now, back to G.I. Joe.
Firefly
The guy who played the
pumped
Punisher
acid
in
into
the
main
third
fuel
Punisher
lines.
movie, Punisher Warzone, he played Firefly in the G.I. Joe sequel. Firefly is awesome. So Firefly has basically destroyed all the G.I.
Now,
Joe
if we want to
tools.
fly to the Arctic, we have to fly standby.
And Cutter nails it. Cutter, by the way, looks like a Mark.
We have to fly standby.
Standby. Looks like a Mark Bright drawing.
We expended $3 billion worth of ordnance for nothing, and now we have to fly standby.
It's a good thing we got those congressional appropriations to buy fresh ones.
See, that's like a 3-story building. Like, I don't. If he's within 25 miles of it, the Inuit guy is going to be able to see that peeking up over the hilltop.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe you don't care. Maybe
Oh, look,
they're
the
cool with
Cobras
it.
are playing cards.
Cobras
I
are
love it.
totally playing cards. Flint and Jay, they're causing a distraction while they break out. They've got a knife in his watch, so they're using it to cut the ropes that are keeping them secure. Now, this again goes to why doesn't Cobra just kill them once they have them? What's the
a fair question?
I mean, a fair question, but I get it. I'm not going to quibble with that. Oh, there you go. And they escaped, and now they just took over these Cobra
why are
snow
you in
serpents.
here singing Battle Hymn of the Republic?
Can you figure out how
You're
it
messing
works?
up our poker
I think
game.
so. Destro always uses the same basic design layouts.
I'll remember that in the future.
It's such a great line. And look at this great outfit. Destro's got his snow look on, but it still has the red pop collar that he loves to wear. So he's got a total snow jacket, but he still looks like Destro. I love it.
What is the status during this episode of like the Destro versus Cobra Commander like rivalry?
Well, you know, Destro's an arms dealer, so he's a mercenary that works for Cobra. So the rivalry is such that Destro wants Cobra to succeed, but he doesn't really have any stake in the game. You know, like he's not going to put his own butt on the line. And so he'll take charge when he needs to, but ultimately it's Cobra's organization. So if he wants to pull out, he has no problems doing it because he's got his own business, Mars, the armament corporation. So it's tenuous, but I like that it's complicated because it's for kids.
They have a complicated relationship.
Yeah. Their relationship status it's complicated. So we got Ripcord is flying in a Sky Striker, and he's out of gas, and he's going to eject over the site in the Arctic. Ripcord, awesome character, played by one of the Wayans brothers in that first movie. Of course, boyfriend of Candy the Balloon Bear. Bongo. Well, Bongo the Balloon Bear, Candy Southern was her real name. And he is found by the same family that rescued Snow Job. What a coinkydink. Snow Job, still shirtless. I wonder why that is. I don't know enough about survival. Why do they always strip people down? I guess if you're wet, you don't want them in wet clothes, but why aren't you putting more warm clothes on them? Like,
Well, he's under a blanket.
yeah, but he's still nude. Like, why don't
Your ugly puss could
you know what I'm
look
saying?
so good.
Like, you see that a lot.
I never thought your ugly puss could look so good.
And he's
Was
like,
the line that was just
yeah,
said.
oh yeah, he did. He said, that's an ugly puss.
He's better looking than average for the people
It's
in this
true.
cartoon.
Ripcord's a good-looking guy. I mean, Cutter is ugly.
Oh, that polar bear.
Oh, here comes the polar bear.
You see, like Cobra Man number 3 saying to Cobra Man number 4, you see, you told me that we shouldn't get this polar bear, and look, it came out to be a useful polar bear.
Yeah, and Flint and Jay are joined at the hip by chains, a precursor to their eventual marriage. What? And Cobra Commander gives him the old thumbs down.
Because the polar bear has been trained to read gladiatorial signals.
Of course.
And knows that that's the signal.
Listen, everyone loves Gladiator. Everyone loves Ben-Hur. That polar bear's seen Ben-Hur.
hovercrafts.
Of course they're in the hovercraft. The whale. You don't have Cutter in your episode if you're not going to pay off with the whale later. I love it. Yeah, Roadblock shows up for one line to say, let's frickin' see those snakes. That's what I love about G.I. Joe. For no reason, one line. Going hose back. They're firing. I love the whale. The whale is probably my favorite, like larger scale toy. It's so great. They can't get through the armor. Whale skids out, crashes, immediately catches on fire. Like the most flammable. There's Mutt, the most flammable of all.
I love that the polar bear stopped attacking them to turn his head and listen to the sounds of the battle off camera.
What are they? That polar bear just bit through a steel chain. Like bit through it. They used it to snap the chain. They put it through his jaws, and instead of ripping the polar bear's mouth apart, he just bit through it.
I love that the inside door of the Gladiators arena there came with like a convenient block bar.
Sure.
What house would you expect? And stupidity, but I will be pleased
Destro,
to teach you.
Too busy chit-chatting instead of just shooting. Lady J
knocked him in his metal head with a chain.
Yeah, she did. Knocks the gun out with that chain. And they're having trouble shutting off the Aurora Borealis machine. And he's going to overload it full power. Oh, I know what he's doing. He's going to melt the ice around the thing, and they're going to sink the base. This is like the plot. Honestly, this is very much like the plot in the first G.I. Joe movie. Do you remember that? They had the under ocean cap base, and then all of a sudden the ice level is getting blown up. In the movie, in a major American feature film, they had ice sinking. Ice sunk in the water and crushed the Cobra base, which was underwater. Ice, Bart Gold, sank. Ice doesn't.
Yeah,
sink.
that doesn't work, does it?
No, it doesn't. And yet, in a movie that costs a lot of money with a lot of people behind it, they had ice sink.
Duke and Cutter will take care of them.
Those creeps are getting away.
Those creeps are totally getting away, and I'm talking about the studio execs. Oh, this is great. They're dropping depth charges. Which is one of the coolest features of that toy.
Ring their chimes.
Duke just rung their chimes. Stopped them. They picked up the gang. I love that the hovercraft flies like a skiff, like a Jabba sail barge. And the ship and the base sinks underwater, which is fantastic. I guarantee I know the people who wrote that movie had to watch this episode. You don't write that movie and not have this
and
episode
now they're
in mind.
enjoying the Aurora Borealis with their new friend, the polar bear.
The polar bear shows up, and he's gonna. What is he doing? He's
You're not just gonna let him
sunning
nap
himself.
there, are you, Duke?
I have a policy about 10-foot bears. Lady, as far as I'm concerned, they can sleep anywhere they want.
Awesome. That's so great. Bart
It's
Gold.
good to have a policy about 10-foot bears.
We did it. We did it, Bart Gold. Do you have a policy about 10-foot bears?
I'm going to go home and write one. And I'm going to have it cover all eventualities.
I'm going to hang it above the door. I love it. Bart, thoughts?
Ruined in a hovercraft, I'm going to need to have a 10-foot bear policy.
Thoughts and Haul Down the Heavens.
I like Haul Down to Heavens.
Yeah?
Haul Down to Heavens. I feel like that they're taking liberties with what powers the Aurora Borealis lights have.
You mean science?
They're
taking liberties with science.
It's like they give you. But when you're screenwriting, you're allowed to have one, give in a sci-fi.
Sure. Yeah. Like I'm willing to believe in this one thing in order for the rest of the story to go on. Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it started out kind of taking you one way, thinking it was going to be this ghost story about scientists in the Arctic, and then it just went the entire opposite way and became an all-out battle in the snow. That's great.
I was just amazed that the doctor accent didn't turn out to be Zartan. Because he had just too much facial hair and glasses. He seemed like he was in disguise. And then it turned out that the Baroness was doing the Zartan duty in this episode.
I love that we had the Firefly action. It was a great episode. There was a lot going on. It was really good.
I do love that it was a black female scientist.
Yeah.
They were an inclusive more than I think some other shows were back then.
Absolutely. Bart Gold, thank you so much for joining us on Joe and
Thank
Joe
you,
this
Joe.
week. Remember to go to bartgold.com to check out my good friend's fantastic writing. If you want to hire him, he will write the hell out of something. If you need homemade file cards on a 1985 Photo Paint.
Super Paint, yeah.
Super Paint program. Bart will do it for you. And I'm your host, Joe Slepsky. Remember, Twitter, Joe and Joe Pod, Facebook, etc., so on and so forth. And now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.